Okay, let
recording.
me turn off my phone and shit.
All right, let me turn off my notifications. Boom.
Oh, you're gonna record this? I'm leaving the meeting. I'm not doing that.
What?
I'm not letting you capture me on camera. I know what you do. You use it against me on TikTok.
No, I don't.
You said fairy farts. Isn't that funny?
All right, everyone. Hello. I have the very great pleasure of uh, sitting under this great man's tutelage called Tim Cramer. Tim, if you don't mind, just giving a little background information so the people can know who you are, what you do, where you're from, stuff like that.
Okay. Was raised extremely poor. Got a great education like Abe Lincoln did. I just read a lot, went to the library a lot, and excelled in school. Did a great job in school. And then when I was 16, I decided to be rebellious, and I became the worst son that any parent could wish for, and learned a lot of lessons the hard way during that period, and kind of molded me into who I am now. Went to college at 15, turned 16 in my freshman year, and did not excel in college, hated college. And so I left college and kind of went out on my own, got into broadcasting, became a DJ, realized there was no long term, uh, there weren't any old DJs, let me put it that way. So I decided to get into other areas of broadcasting. That led me to production. Production led me to advertising and marketing. And in 2009, I took our production company and converted it to a full service advertising agency, and we took off overnight. And then we saw COVID come in and destroy everything that we had worked for the last several years, and decided to change the direction of my life and what I was doing. And in that process, got onto social media and ran into you. So that's the long and short of it.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about just for the next 30 minutes on the four types of leaderships. And I'm just going to say what I have. I said, put your name, Tim Cramer. What is a servant leader? The servant leadership is a philosophy in which a leader or goal is to serve the traditional type of leadership where the leader's primary focus is thriving the company or organization. And I stated that, Tim, you're not a servant leader in the sense that you're willing to
That's
give
really not
money,
me. Yeah, that's
but
really not me.
you are a servant leader in certain aspects. Um, in what I have noticed that you're willing to serve the community, you're willing to give information out to the community. So you're still a servant leader, but out of all the four types of leadership from transformational, authentic, adaptive, and servant, you are more of an adaptive leader. Like you said, you have this broadcasting agency called Choose Mosaic, and you have a social media platform called Kramer Says that I am on from time to time. And I basically said, you can go into a business and you can tell them what's wrong and you can tell them how to fix it by adapting to what their type of leadership is and basically showing them this is how you do it, this is how you transform, and this is how you make the most of your money for getting the quality of product that you're producing. So I, in my opinion, truly do believe that you are more of an adaptive leader out of all of them.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think it's interesting to be a great leader. In my viewpoint, you have to be a mix of all of those, right? And you may use 80% of one on one day and um, none of that particular type of leadership the following day.
mhm,
I think that again, my leadership style is give the man a fish, and you feed him for one day. Teach a man how to fish. You've taught him how to feed himself for the rest of his life, and that I think is more important. Is to allow people to
mhm.
give people the autonomy that they need to grow, with the accountability that's required to maintain their growth, so they don't go crazy, right? They don't lose themselves
Absolutely.
in the process.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, my approach has always been kind of like what the way that I learn best. And the way that I learn best is hands on, somebody showing me, a master showing me how to do something,
Mhm.
and giving me an overview, right?
Right.
These aren't the specifics of it, but you can do this, this, and this. And with these tools, you're capable of doing these certain things. My ability and the way my brain works is that I can take those lessons and if I understand what happens from A, B, C, and Z, those four
Mhm.
dynamics, those 4 points, then I have the ability to be able to uh, go in between all of those points. What I mean is I understand now, well, if I can do this, this, and this, that probably means I can do this as well. And my willingness to fail, to learn, is what I try to impart on other people. You don't learn anything from just doing it. You learn from your failures. You learn
Right.
what not to do. So that's the mastery, I think, of leadership, is allowing people to be able to learn, but also fail, and having that support structure underneath them, that when they do fail, you can say, okay, now do you understand why what happened? And I don't think that there's a lot of that left in our country anymore, or on the planet. I think that everybody's really out for themselves.
Mm-hmm. All right. Now I did send you a little I'm trying to pull the file up here right now. I think it's called The Power Within essay. Now this essay, I'm reading it for my paper, and we both talked about it from time to time when we get the time to talk on the phone. And one thing I just want to ask, what is one way by reading this essay you can say, how can it help a college student be more prepared for the more tough, rigorous challenges that there are in life? You know, the ups, the downs, the no's, the yeses. And when it feels like you're at rock bottom, what will you do? Or what is your take on how a college student can prepare themselves for it?
I'll give you an example of my son when he was in college. He called and had a great idea. Wanted to launch this business. And when he called, I told him, I says, well, you're gonna have to do this, and this, and I'm outlining all the things. And he got upset with me. I didn't know he was upset with me, but he was upset with me.
Right.
And then my wife later that evening says, well, why did you tell Matt no, that you weren't going to do that stuff? I said, what? Well, Matt says that he called you about this business idea and you told him no. And I said, I didn't tell him no. I never said no. What I said was, these are all the things you're going to have to do to be successful. These are all the hurdles you're going to have to overcome, and not to be successful, but to hope to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what college students, I don't think that that's being taught in college. I think that they're being taught that if you give, well, I know they're being taught this. If you've got a degree, right? If you've got a degree, then you can go into the world and this is your value. Your value isn't in that piece of paper. Your value is in being able to use what you supposedly learned while attaining that piece of paper. That's what you're supposed to be able to leverage. And if you don't have enough real world knowledge, and you go out in the real world thinking that paper gives you that knowledge, it doesn't. It's your ability to learn, your ability to adapt, your ability to be compassionate to others. All of these things that you should have learned, I don't think are being taught. So people get into the workforce, they get into, my son did the same thing. Finally, what he realized, and this is the way I had to tell it to him, was, I'm not telling you no, I'm telling you what you have to do to hope to be successful. And I think that that's what college kids today need to realize, is that that piece of paper doesn't make you successful. That piece of paper is just the piece of, it's the one thing that you needed. It's just, it's one more tool that you needed in your toolbox just to hope to be successful. And that you're going to go out there and there's going to be members among you and your age group that are going to go out and see the world in different ways. You're going to have friends. That happened to me. I dropped out of college. It wasn't for me, right? I wish I had finished. But I had so many opportunities available to me that was making so much money doing exactly what I wanted to do. Why would I stay in college? That was my mentality. And I was a full ride scholarship, so it didn't cost me any money to drop out. But with that being said, you know, Cedric, the important part is I think is that for kids today is to understand life is hard. It's hard on everyone. It's not easy. And what they see from the outside is, this classmate has taken off, or that celebrity is a star, or they've attained exactly what they wanted to attain, and they never take time to realize how much work it took to get to that point, the amount of time that they had to commit to get to that point to look successful. Justin Bieber is a great example. I think from your generation, what you realize about Justin Bieber is that he was doing his music on YouTube and publishing it on YouTube when no one was listening, when no one was watching, when he was doing the work that made him successful. way before anybody knew the name Justin Bieber. And so that's, I think, what kids need to take away today is that life is hard. It's a struggle. And just because you got that piece of paper doesn't mean you're going to be successful. It's the piece that it's the piece that you need to have in the hopes to be successful. So no, like I told my son, I'm not telling you no. I'm telling you these things have to be in place first before you can even hope to be successful. That's what I think that kids need to take away from what we're talking about today.
I
When I say
agree.
kids, I mean young adults, not kids.
I agree, but really, and honestly, I truly do believe that I really say I got to thank God for bringing us together at the time He did, because I remember before last year in 2021, I told you I was just like done with school. Like I didn't want to do it. Like I was just like, I was contemplating changing my major, and you told me, no, don't do it. Stick with it. It's all going to work out. And for the end, because I told you I was going to switch my major to, what was it? Digital media marketing. It
Mhm.
was like, that's not going to fit you. I know you. You're more of a business guy. You like to sit in the meetings. And even when you have your business calls, I chime in and I listen to what you're talking about, because it's more of my perspective. Because one day I'm going to be running your company. I want you to know that. I tell them all the time, people, I'm going to be running Cramer Says.
Well, you got to start in the mailroom. That's where you start. You start at the bottom and work your way up, just like
most
I did.
most definitely. And most definitely. And what I can say is that you've been on my ass every day since we've met. Since we had that 3.5 hour phone call, you told me that you see greatness in me, and I appreciate it. And just to divvy away from the topic, when I went to church on Sunday for Easter, one of the pastors, Pastor Ray, he said he sees nothing but business for me, and I just thought about the conversation we had. He was like, "You're a business minded man." And then you've had conversation with my mom. You're like, your son is going to go places in business that I haven't even touched. And you're like, I'm getting the education for business, even though you've already started a business. It was much harder for you because you didn't have the necessary tools.
Well,
If you would
right,
have finished
Cedric.
college.
I had no mentors. As I said earlier, I was raised extremely poor. I didn't have access to education. Nobody in my family was college educated or had any extended learning. My dad was a high school dropout. Now here's what's interesting, and this is what I think is what people don't get. My dad couldn't read.
But he could
He had
preach.
basic. He could preach, but he couldn't read. He had a very poor education. He could barely read. He could read the Bible just well enough to understand it. From time to time, he would say, "What's this word and what does it mean?" He would ask, me as an 11 or 12-year-old, "What does this word mean?" And so what I learned was how important education is, and that just because you're locked into a specific situation right now today doesn't mean that's what tomorrow is going to bring. I'll give you an example. In the time that we've known each other, this last 2 or 3 years, on a number of occasions, I've said I'm going to do this, this, or this, and people look at me and they go, "Oh yeah, right." I'm a big believer in, you can't just say you're going to do it. You have to actually do all the work that it takes to get it done. You can't just say, I want this to happen without taking an action. In the Bible, it says that faith without action is meaningless.
Mm.
You can pray all day long, or you can wish all day long, but unless you take the first step to making it happen, it'll never happen. So in my life, what I do a lot of times is I tell the universe, God, whoever, right, this is what I want to attain. This is what my goal is. And you've seen it happen, and hopefully that is helping you realize that if you say it and you take action on it, it will materialize. Your wishes, everything will happen, right? And it's based on what you're willing to do, the sacrifices you're willing to make. And I'll close with this. My brother was a graphic designer, phenomenal, just super talented. But he wasn't willing to make the sacrifices it took to be successful. He didn't want to work under someone else and have them direct his art. He wanted to do his own thing. Well, I realized that I was a whore, right? It didn't matter to me if somebody else was directing me. They were paying me to do it, and while they're paying me to do it, I'm learning the craft. I'm getting better at what I'm doing. And no, it's not the best. No, maybe I have to suffer through this because I don't know everything yet, right? Now I'm almost 60 years old. I don't take the jobs that don't pay anymore. I don't have to. I'm top dollar. I'm $300, $400 an hour for my time. There's a reason for that. I wasn't worth that 25, 30 years ago. I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. My brother didn't stick through that. He wasn't willing to go through that process. And so he languished. As good as he was, he languished. He never was able to materialize his full talent because he wasn't willing to be subservient first. And I think that's the most valuable lesson. I'm in a position now, Cedric, where people from the outside, especially college age kids, they look at what I do. My oldest son is one of them, and he had to understand. He goes, "Well, Dad," he goes, "you do that," and I go, "I do that because I've got 40 years experience behind me. You can't do that. You don't have that yet. You're a newbie in the business. You can't do that yet. You can't make that statement because you don't have the experience that I have behind me. That's my value. It has nothing to do with the piece of paper. It's what's in here." And that's what kids, I think, today have to understand.
Oh, that's a lot. That's a lot because
Yeah.
I remember about two. Oh wow, I've been gone from Lowe's a long time. I was just telling my coworker this last night. Is that I have one mentor who I see as a father. Basically, you become my dad in one way or another. In certain circumstances where I kept telling you the job, this, that, and that. And one thing you said more than anything is that you do what needs to be done, you shut the hell up, and then when it's time to go, you put your feelings aside and you just do the with business. You just
Yep.
deal it with business. And for someone who has been in college for almost maybe 2.5 years, I know what you're talking about now. It's just business.
Right.
It's just
I will show you just as much loyalty as you show me.
And I have been loyal since day one, Tim. I'm like one of your top dogs, your
No, no,
top
no,
recruits.
I realize that. What I'm saying is that my loyalty to a business,
Hmm.
I will only be as loyal to them as they all are to me. I don't owe you loyalty. I don't owe you respect, right? I owe you what you give me,
Hmm.
right? And that's the way that I try to treat everyone. And again, I think today that there are kids that today believe that they should be shown respect before they've earned it, that they should be shown um, that they should be put up on a pedestal that they didn't climb on their own.
Hmm.
Uh, for those of us, and you're going through it right now, the struggles that you've been through for the last 2 or 3 years, in particular with COVID and so on. I find it interesting all the excuses that people make, and my wife and I were just talking about it this morning. Is that if you want to hold people accountable for your failures, you have to first take accountability for the decisions you made that allowed them to have that much control over your life.
Most definitely.
Right. And so it's a different way of looking at things. The way that I look at things is that, and I said it this morning, everything that's ever happened bad to me, everything in my life was generally based on a bad decision I made in the first place.
Yeah.
I didn't think it out well enough. I didn't think it through. Now there are some times, and you've seen it. There's some times that bullies, narcissists, people who are upset with your rise. They see you getting better. They would rather live in their despair and their depression than see
Hmm.
you rise.
Hmm.
And the important thing is, and in my life, is that I've learned to cut those people loose.
Oh yeah.
They are lead weights on my balloon, right? I can't rise if they're holding me down. If they refuse to rise with me, right? And this is what you and I have talked about, right? Is that I'd love to have you take over the company at some point, right? Down the road, that's the case. Yeah, right. But you got to work for that. I'm not going to hand it to you. And I've been very blunt about it. Nope.
Yeah.
Start where I start, right?
I'm
I'll bring
not
you in,
ready.
but you're going to start at the bottom. You're going to learn the
You,
system like
you,
I learned it.
you
And
tell
you may
me.
be accelerated. But again, what I said earlier is that I didn't have those mentorships. I didn't have any of that. So it was the school of hard knocks. And it's amazing how I think that people have an education. They have an education. What I mean education is not a formal education. They have an education, the talents that they have, the skills that they have. And a lot of people see that as, this is how I pay my bills. This is how I make my living. And I don't want to give up any of that information because you may be a competitor of mine. You may come in and take this away from me. And
Hmm.
I've never looked at it that way. What I've looked at is I don't own clients. They're not mine. They're everybody's. I've just got to super serve those people better than anybody else can. I've got to be more creative than anybody else can. I have to work harder than the next guy. If the guy that if the guy I'm doing business with, right? If he gets up and shows up at work at 9, I got to be there at 7. I've got to beat my competition to the market. Again, it goes back to life. Life is like gambling. It's like being at the craps table. The work that you're doing today may not have you going to college right now. And this is what I try to tell you, and you saw the light. What you're doing today, this lesson that you're doing today, will most likely have no impact on the rest of your life. But it's one of the things that you have to do to get that piece of paper to get to the next stage where it will make an impact, because this had to happen. This lesson had to be completed for you to get that piece of paper that says, I can be committed long enough to a program and to a system and learn and be educated on certain matters. I can do that. I stick through it. Even when it gets tough and I don't want to do it, I keep my nose to the grindstone because I see the result that I'm going to get at the end of the tunnel. And that result is it'll set me up for the hope of being successful. And that's what I keep trying to push, right? It's what you're doing today is the thing that has to happen for Justin Bieber. He had to make those videos that got 0 views.
Mm-hmm.
He had to make those
Mm-hmm.
to end up on that stage. And that's what I try to impress on everybody. It takes the work that nobody sees to make you an overnight success.
Most definitely. Most definitely. And I try to tell my friends this all the time. And now that I've come to the realization, some people are just, sorry to say, just lost causes. They don't want to be motivated. They don't want to have that drive or the ambition. Like I have a friend who I love dearly. He's like a brother to me. And I tell him, you're sidetracked by working 2 jobs and a girlfriend right now. You need to either focus on 2 things. You're going to work those 2 jobs to finish your school. He's supposed to be graduating next month. And I had said this in class. You're focusing on something that's not going to give you long-term success. And what I mean by long-term success, you finishing school is just only a cornerstone of the rest of the foundation that you have to finish setting. Like I told him, and I tell him all the time, you're being distracted with a girlfriend. I seen this video a couple nights ago. They was like, if a man has enough time to make time for his girlfriend 24/7, that's not a man who's willing to do anything for his life.
Yep.
And I take that hard to lesson because I just left out of a 2.5-year relationship. I got cheated on. Now that I look back, I was like, I gave most all my time to my ex-girlfriend and not given enough time for what was important. I could have had more A's than I needed. I could have been focused more. I could have been more prepared more for coming into the spring semester. But since I was lollygagging around dealing with a relationship, I didn't see what the importance was, and I got bit in the end. I got bit by the king cobra, and that was a
Well,
breakup.
it's goals, right? It's goals. I set very high goals for myself.
Mhm.
And I've got a huge one right now. I'm in the process of building out, the
An
next
empire.
social media platform,
An
right?
empire.
That's the goal. That's what I want to do. Is it attainable? I don't know. I don't know if it'll happen, but it will not happen if I don't keep working on it on a daily basis. It will not happen if I don't continue to make the call that leads me to the next person, that leads me to the next person, that can make it happen, that can make it,
Mhm.
we can realize the dream. The dream cannot be realized unless you take action. And to your point, I've got a buddy, and we've talked about this before, and you've got a group of buddies, the same exact thing. But I want to tell you about this one specific buddy because it hurts my heart every time I have to tell this story. Doug and I met when we were 18, 19 years old, and great guy, super intelligent. I mean, just smart beyond belief. This kid, photographic memory, knew how to knew a strategy, meaning that he could take all these bits of useless information in his brain and bring them together. He was an artist. He wrote music. He could play nearly any instrument. I don't care if he picked up the didgeridoo, he could learn how to play it within 24 hours. That kid, he knew everything. And life was so easy for him to an extent, right? That nothing mattered because it had no value. Your education, for example, I know you've got classes that they beat you up, right? They're hard, but when you go through that class and you finally get out of it and you've gotten the grade that you're going to get, you toughed it out. He wasn't willing to do that. When life got hard, he just went in another direction. He would never finish anything. You couldn't count on him to show up when he said he was going to show up because he would BBD you. The BBD is the bigger, better deal. right? Somebody else said you were going to go fishing, and somebody says, well, hey, do you want to go to this party? It's free booze all night long. Well, he would ditch you from fishing and not call you. And this is before cell phones. He wouldn't get a hold of you to let you know. So you're at the fishing hole waiting for him for 5 hours, and he never shows up, and he's the one that had the keys to the boat, right? So that's the person that Doug was, and those qualities did not do well for him. When we split, when I stopped really having a daily meaningful relationship with him as a friend, was when I arrived at his home. He had become an alcoholic. We were supposed to go I think we were going fishing, and I stopped by his house to pick him up. And when I walk inside, the entire foyer of the entry of the home was covered in blood. His kitchen was covered in blood. There's blood in the living room, and he's asleep on the couch. He's passed out on the couch, drunk, and he's covered in blood. And I'm freaking out. And I was, what is going on? And in a drunken stupor, he had come in. He lived with his girlfriend and his girlfriend's roommate. He came in, and the roommate's dog had gotten into the trash. And he was so upset that in his drunken stupor, he beat the dog to death. And then when he realized what he had done, again, bad decisions, he decided he had to get rid of the dog. And there's no way to get rid of it. So he butchered the dog in his drunken stupor, and didn't realize what butchering took, that you've got to let him bleed out first. So he started cutting him. Well, the blood's all over the kitchen. It's everywhere. He was stepping in it. It was everywhere. He had a problem. He went to rehab. It didn't stop his problems, because he never went back and realized that bad decisions are what lead to bad outcomes, bad lives.
Most definitely.
So Doug and I intermittently would see each other from that point on over the years. I would run into him certain places. He's a musician here in Indianapolis. And so I would run into him from time to time. And have you seen those pictures of people who got arrested when they were 18 for crack or drug addiction? And then you see them 10, 15 years down the line, all of their mug shots, and you see the deterioration of them as a human being and just how far they've gone down. Mm-hmm. That's what happened to Doug. And so I own a building in Indianapolis. We were having it refurbed. It's a 1905 Masonic Lodge. Very cool building. And come to find out, I'm outside the building, and who walks up on me but Doug? And he's at the church next door. There's the building is in a historic district, so there's it's a church that is 118 years old that's next door to us. So they do AA meetings there, and there's Doug. I haven't seen him in probably 15 years, and he's standing there. And in front of me is a man who could sit down, Cedric, and he could do the New York Times crossword puzzle in pen and not miss a beat. He did it every day. Genius level. Guy is super smart, very well read, educated. His life in shambles because he made poor decisions, because he wasn't willing to do the hard work that it took to be successful. He wanted it handed to him on a silver platter because he had the ability, but he wasn't willing to do the work that it took. And that's where your life ends. That's when you take the easy way out all the time. And by the way, he made the comment to me in this last meeting. He sees my success. And what he said to me, and it stuck with me, and it hurts. It hurts because he doesn't understand where it's coming from. He told me, he says, "You're so lucky. Everything falls into your lap." Now imagine that. He continues to make wrong decisions. His life leads to what it is, but I'm lucky. I didn't do any work. From his perspective, it's just luck. It all happened. It just all fell in my lap. And my comment was, well, Doug, you've never realized how hard you have to work to have your lap in all the right places for all that shit to fall into it. That's what you've never understood. That's why you're at this church today, and that's why I own the building across the street from the AA meeting. It's not luck. It didn't fall in my lap. It was a goal. It was a plan. You never had those. Don't devalue the work that I've done over the last 40 years because you were unwilling to do it. Mm-hmm. And those are the lessons that you and I have had these conversations, just like we're having right now. These life lessons, these things that need to be taught to young people, is to explain to them that tomorrow, right? The success you have tomorrow is based on the work you're willing to do today. And tomorrow may be 10 years down the road. So when I told you a year ago, a year and a half ago, I'm going to start a social media company from the ground up, it was like, okay, whatever. Well, now I'm dealing with some of the richest people in the country, on the planet, because they see it too. That wouldn't have happened. My conversations that I'm having right now today would not be taking place if I didn't start doing the work a year and a half ago. There's no immediate gratification, and nobody will see all the work and all the crap I had to do in that year and a half or 2 years or 5 years that it's going to take to be successful. Nobody will see that. They'll just see one day, well, Cramer's got his own social media platform. So the leadership that I try to give is that right there. That's what I try to instill. Well, that's what I've tried to instill in my boys. That's why I've tried to instill in you. In our relationship is that you are more than you are today. You don't see it because you haven't recognized it yet. Now, I'll say this, and I'll shut up about it. The reason that I have the ideology that I have about success is because it's what I learned the hard way. I didn't have somebody at 2021 telling me, hey, you don't want to do this, you want to do this. I didn't have anybody. So I made the wrong decision a lot. Everything that I know today is from wrong decisions. And wrong decisions, bad decisions, are the things that guide you. Those are the bumper rails if you go, well, I don't want to do that again. So you get back into the center. And I don't want to do that again, so you come back into the center. And the center is where the success is. The bad decisions on either side of that, you finally see eventually, well, wait a minute. I can see the bumpers. I don't need to bump into those anymore. I've learned enough to where I know how to stay in the middle lane. And that, I think, is what today's younger generation doesn't get. I think that they're waiting for success to fall into their lap. And when it doesn't, they blame society, they blame everybody around them, and they never take a look at take a look at what they didn't do, right? What they weren't willing to do. And that's what, I've told you is every time you say something bad happening, well, what did you do? Right? Or what did you allow to have happen? What did you allow someone else to do? And so the big thing, and what have I told you time and time again? Think forward tomorrow. If you hate your job today, stop bitching about your job today.
You saw what I did. I went on leave and I'm not going back. I'm not. This Sunday, we got 3 minutes left this Sunday, and this will just be the last little bit. This Sunday, we have a crawfish boil. I'm going to go talk to the HR lady Sunday. I'm like, I thank y'all for the opportunity, but I don't foresee myself ever coming back to the car wash. I will use this place as a reference. If not, I'll go on with my merry way. And I realized is that what you've been telling me over the last 2.5 years is that I value no matter what place I work in. If I get tired of a job, I need to know it's not for me. I got to go. I got to find something else.
Well, Cedric, a buddy of mine, this is 30 years ago, a buddy of mine took a job and he made fun of us. We were working in a bar, right? And he made fun of us. He was a college student, and I'm a DJ in the bar, and the bartenders, there's a couple of bartenders that are college students. He's making fun of us that, we'd worked there for a couple of years. We had a goal in mind, and his was, he was going to be, I think that he was a psychology major. It was a weird one. Anyway, long story short, is that he made fun of us because we were in the bar business, and bar business is it's not lofty. Nobody looks at the bar business as. Here's what's funny. For whatever reason, him being a barback, and if you know anything about bars, that's the lowest man on the totem pole, right? The barback is the guy that cleans up everybody's messes, gets the booze, stocks all the bartenders. They are the low man on the totem pole. Denny now owns 30 to 40 bars around the nation. When I say bars, I mean major nightclubs. He never went into the industry. He made fun of us. He's the only one that's still in it. None of us are still in that industry. So my point is that, and I've told my sons, you never know what that shitty job that you have in mind, that shitty job that you don't want to do, right? You never know if that's going to be the one that leads to your success. And for Denny, it did. He never left the business. He's been very successful in it, and we joke with him about it all the time. So my point is that shitty job that you have, give 100% until it's time to not give a care about it at all anymore.
Yeah.
And because that's for you. That's not for them. That's for you.
Yeah.
Because if you'll cheat, this is the way I look at it. If you'll cheat a business out of their time, you'll do the same thing to yourself because you don't value it. You don't value the time. I value the time that I give my clients because I value my time. This just blew your mind, didn't I?
It did. This for every conversation we have, it's always I take something from it. I learn every time talking to you. And that's what I want to stretch in the last 59 seconds to the audience and to my teacher who read this, sees this, is that no matter what you do, you give it 110%. I know when I worked at the car wash, I never took a single day off. And when I worked at Lowe's, I never took a single day off. I gave it 110%, even when I'm in school. When I
Yep.
can't physically make it, I'll email my professor and I'll do the work without having any prior hand knowledge.
Yep.
None. I wasn't able to go to school a couple weeks ago, so I missed a lot. So I just emailed my professors to say, "Hey, I want to catch up on my work in spring break. I need to, so I can pass the class." So
Yep.
what I'm saying is this: is that no matter how hard life hits, you got to be willing to take the hits to become
Right.
successful. And
Right.
that's what I have learned. That's what I learned from you. And I just want to say thank you for giving me 40 minutes of your time because I know you're a very busy man. This is Tim Cramer. This is Vaughn, and we're out. Boom.
That it?